Kim called Karen, but either way, Karen's contacted at this point. It appears that Karen picks up on some of the weirdness of the situation, and she even offers to fly up and just kind of help alleviate a little bit. At which point, Bryce immediately kind of shuts his mom down politely, tells her, hey, everything's fine, you don't need to be flying up here, just tell Kim, give me my keys back, and I'll head home, we'll be done with this. Karen, for whatever reason, and I don't blame her for this at all, again, she probably just didn't think anything was seriously that wrong, she convinces Kim to give the keys back on the grounds that Bryce promises to call her in the morning. Bryce agrees. He says, he's got a lot he wants to talk to his mom about. Doesn't really get into much detail regarding what all of this stuff is he wants to talk to his mom about, but he says, yeah, Mom, I got a lot to talk to you about. Don't worry. Promise I'll call you in the morning. I'm heading home now. So Bryce ends up leaving Kim's residence at about 11:30 p.m. that night. So August 29th rolls around. About 1 a.m. in the morning, a call is placed to Karen and Michael's home. Being at the time of night that it is, the call obviously probably goes unanswered. I would be sleeping if it were me. But at this point, Karen is under the assumption Bryce is already headed home, and she's like, I'll speak to him in the morning. Bing, bang, boom, done. An investigation into those phone records later reveals that this unanswered call was in fact from Bryce's cell phone. However, he was not home. Not anywhere near it, actually. The call was made from Bryce's phone in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, about an hour south from his home in Rockland. I don't know why, but that's just fucking creepy. It makes me wonder, what was he calling for? Because as you'll see later on, as we get into some of the upcoming details, it seems like Bryce doesn't really want to talk to his mom, so he calls her at 1 a.m., but never initiates really any other contact with her until he's kind of forced to. So it's just interesting to wonder what the hell was he calling her for. But anyway, so 11 a.m. rolls around and both Karen and Michael receive a voicemail from Bryce. It's unclear exactly what is said on the voicemail. Some sources state that his parents attempted to reach him but were unsuccessful. Whether it was said on the voicemail or the parents went online and discovered it, they found out that Bryce had called for some roadside assistance about 2 hours prior at around 9 a.m. It appeared that Bryce's vehicle had ran out of gas and that he had driven pretty much through the whole night and ended up stranded near a teeny tiny town called Buttonwillow, California. I've never even heard of it until this case. It's located in Kern County, which is approximately a little over halfway to his parents' house from Rockland. Again, his parents attempted to contact Bryce directly, but received nothing. Finally, they decided, okay, let's look up this repair shop that had responded to Bryce's call for roadside assistance. An employee of Castro's Tire and Gas by the name of Christian responded to Bryce's call that morning, and he recalled reporting to Buttonwillow Rest Area and delivering 3 gallons of gas to Bryce around 9:30 a.m. Bryce paid for the gas with his parents' card, by the way, which is probably how they were able to track the business that had reported to his roadside assistance call. I was wondering that initially. But it looks like he used his parents' credit card, and that's probably smart parents, by the way. To be on it like that, just being like, can't get a hold of him. Roadside assistance, let's check the credit card. Super smart. Proud of his parents for just jumping on that right away. So after analyzing the information they had collected from both the tire shop and their own bank activity, they felt it was safe to assume that Bryce was on his way home. After a few more attempts at contacting him and getting nothing, they decided to wait for his arrival, which should have taken no more than 3 hours tops from Buttonwillow to Laguna Niguel. Now, hours passed, and Bryce still had not arrived home. Beginning to fucking panic, like any normal parents would, they decided to call Castro's again. They asked Christian to go back and check on Bryce in case maybe he was still stranded or something happened after, Christian had left and still needed help. Granted, wouldn't he just call again? But whatever. Christian heads out. He arrives to find Bryce exactly where he had left him, still sitting in his vehicle. Christian asks him straight out, "What are you doing, buddy?" And Bryce simply says, "Nothing." Didn't have anything to answer except, nothing. Christian described Bryce's demeanor overall as okay. However, he did notice that his eyes were a little bit bloodshot, which makes sense if you've been driving all night, you get stranded, you wait for help. You're going to be tired. So that doesn't seem kind of too out of the ordinary. But at this point, it's about 12:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And it's said that Christian hands Bryce his own personal cell phone, and Karen is on the line. Karen finally speaks to Bryce directly, and it's just overall what the fuck is going on here? She blatantly asks him what is he doing, and Bryce really doesn't have an answer to give his mom. Aside from the weird-ass turn of events that are going on, Karen says that Bryce didn't sound intoxicated, didn't sound impaired or distressed or any sort of red flaggy business in his voice or anything. She said his voice was clear and that he appeared, by all accounts, coherent and Bryce. Karen decides then that Bryce just needs to hightail it on home. He's only roughly 3 hours away, and all of this can just be explained in person when he gets home. Bryce agrees again, and they hang up. So at 3:30 p.m., Bryce has still not arrived home to his parents in Laguna Niguel. They attempt to reach him by phone, but their calls again go unanswered again. They try to chalk it up to just bad traffic at this point. So 6 hours after the last contact they had had with Bryce, his parents decide to contact California Highway Patrol, or CHP for short. His cell phone was able to be tracked, and it was discovered that since 12:30 p.m. until that moment, Bryce had only traveled about 8 miles. His cell phone was still pinging off of towers in Buttonwillow. He never left. So, my question is, why? Why are you still there? What are you doing? His cell phone was still pinging on the towers in Buttonwillow, so it's unclear as to why Bryce didn't answer his phone during these, 6.5 hours of just chilling in Buttonwillow. I mean, there can't possibly be that much going on in that town. The police locate Bryce, and his vehicle is on Lagoon Drive near the Interstate 5 freeway, which is the freeway he would essentially be taking south to get home. It's our main highway. It's runs through several states. It's just, the main drag. So, Bryce had apparently just decided to park next to the highway and remain there until, at which point CHP had rolled up on him. Armed with his mother's accounts of the recent events and her concerns, CHP searches Bryce's vehicle for drugs, alcohol, weapons, anything that can literally explain what the hell he's doing. They didn't find anything. They also performed a field sobriety test, which he passed, and CHP said that when questioned, Bryce simply stated that he was, quote, blowing off some steam before hitting the road again, which sounds like a very average response. They said he was cooperative and he was not belligerent or defensive in any way. Just completely cooperated with them. So because of this, CHP had no reason to detain or question him any further, and they left Bryce alone at that point, with the simple request that he contact his mom. Some reports state that Bryce was reluctant to call his mom, and that a CHP officer is the one who actually dialed her from his phone. At this point, it's about 10 p.m., and Bryce and his mother finally speak again on the phone. Their conversation varies, but some sources state that Karen asks Bryce why he is still in Buttonwillow, with which Bryce responds that he is, quote, meeting up with some friends. I feel like As his mom, like, you would know? Like, does he even know of Button Willow? Like, have you ever heard him mention Friends? Like, me, I'd be contacting Sean and Kim and being like, hey, does Bryce know anybody in Button Willow? Like, I'd be fact-checking his answer. But overall, again, the tone of the conversation seems to be Karen reassuring Bryce that he just needs to get his shit together. Fill up your car again with gas, get something to eat, and just get the hell on home, because this is starting to get really weird. Bryce again agrees for like the 50 millionth time to do what his mother asks, and at that point their conversation ends. So 11 p.m. rolls around. Bryce stops at a gas station in Button Willow and purchases a drink. At some other point during the night, Bryce apparently stops at a Valero gas station and purchases $39 in gas. Now, there are different stories regarding how the next account of events happens. One source states that Christian from Castro's Tires and Gas observes Bryce stationed in the same area, like general vicinity, off the side of the road, as Christian's driving by. He calls Karen to notify her and tells her that he'll follow Bryce onto the interstate. Other accounts state that Bryce himself actually contacted roadside assistance again, and they escorted him back to the interstate. Either way, it's been 13 hours, and Bryce is still in fucking Button Willow after multiple claims that he's leaving. So Christian / roadside assistance, whoever it is, follows Bryce onto the interstate. They observe no erratic or questionable driving, and after 10 miles, they're like, you know what, it seems like he's finally getting his head out of his ass and he's heading home. So they decide to leave him off there, fully expecting him to be on his way. Nope. August 31st, 2013. So at around 1:50 a.m., Bryce calls his mom and explains that he took a brief detour off of the interstate. Doesn't exactly say why or what for, but that his GPS is telling him he'll be home at around 3:25ish. 2:09 a.m., Bryce calls home again, saying that he is just way too tired to be driving anymore, which honestly I would totally believe and be like, yeah, I don't know how you're doing it. And that he's going to pull off to the side of the road and take a little nappy nap. Bryce at this point has been awake for almost 2 days straight, and Karen agrees with this decision. She tells him to lock the doors and get a little shut-eye. Bryce doesn't do this, though. After hanging up with his mom, he continues to drive on for another 90 minutes towards Castaic Lake. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it looks like Castaic Lake. So now we're moving up a little bit in the timeline. So sometime between 4:20 a.m. and 5:15 a.m., Bryce's tan Toyota Highlander is found by law enforcement officials arriving at Castaic Lake for a training exercise. The vehicle is located at the bottom of a 25-foot embankment, laying on its passenger side. The rear window has been broken out. There was a small amount of blood on the passenger side inside the vehicle and on the back seat. However, Bryce wasn't there. All of his belongings were still in the vehicle. His phone, laptop, and his wallet were still in the car. And his duffel bags with his clothes inside was located on the scene as well. Officers noted that the zipper was unzipped, leading them to think that he had possibly removed something from it before kicking out the windshield, the back windshield of his car, and exiting the vehicle. Judging by the damages to the vehicle and the blood present, officers didn't think that Bryce would be suffering from any sort of life-threatening injuries. This wasn't that serious of a crash. It was definitely a big one, but it wasn't like a life-taking or, any sort of super serious can't come back from accident. You know what I'm trying to say. So now, Castaic Lake can be accessed from Interstate 5 via Lake Hughes Road. Lake Hughes Road leads up a hill to Castaic Lake Recreation Area. It is stated that any vehicle traveling up the hill passes by a surveyor.